Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we are going to be tackling some seriously mind-bending stuff.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking fringe science, spirituality, and even a potential timeline war.
It is fascinating stuff, this deep dive that we're taking today. We're looking at notes and research stemming from a conversation with Dan Winter and Jay Widener.
Right.
And if you've been following this kind of stuff for a while, you know that these guys are known for their explorations of esoteric knowledge.
For sure. And one of the first things that jumped out at me when I was looking at this stuff was this idea of a fractality of time.
Yeah.
Have you ever come across that concept before?
Oh yeah, fractality of time. It's a concept that suggests that time isn't just this linear progression, this straight line, but that it actually has this much more complex structure, kind of like a fractal structure. Like imagine a tree with its branches that keep branching out. But in this case, instead of branches, it's time itself that's branching out in multiple directions.
Okay, I'm starting to picture it. But what does that actually mean in a practical sense? Like, why should we care about the, fractality of time?
Well, Dan and Jay suggest that there are some forces out there, some unseen forces that are trying to disrupt this natural fractality of time.
Okay.
And they're suggesting that this is creating chaos and instability. It's almost like a cosmic tug of war. You got these forces that are pulling in one direction, trying to disrupt things, and then you got these other forces that are trying to restore the balance, bring things back into alignment.
So there's this battle happening over the very structure of time.
Yeah, it's a pretty intense concept.
That's a wild thought.
Yeah, and this is where they introduce this idea of a timeline war. Like there's these good guys and bad guys that are vying for control.
That's a pretty dramatic way to frame it.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
Before we get too caught up in this whole good versus evil narrative, can we just try to understand what these forces are actually doing? How are they actually disrupting or restoring this fractality?
Absolutely. And they actually give a really interesting example. They suggest that CERN, with its Large Hadron Collider, they're suggesting that CERN, with these huge energy experiments that they're doing, might be inadvertently mirroring the actions of these disruptive forces. They're claiming that it's creating this kind of chaotic pattern that's disrupting the natural flow of time.
Okay, so are they saying that the scientists at CERN are on the bad guys' team?
Not necessarily. I don't think they're saying that it's intentional.
Okay.
But they're suggesting that these experiments, while they might be groundbreaking in terms of scientific advancements, that they could have these unintended consequences on this cosmic scale,
So it's not about intention, but about impact. Even if we don't fully understand the impact of what we're doing.
Right. And they contrast this with these good guys, they say, who are aiming for this more concentric aligned pattern.
Okay.
That promotes harmony and stability.
Right.
And they actually connect this to the concept of self-implosion as this fundamental force in the universe.
Okay, let's pause there for a second.
Yeah.
Self-implosion. That sounds kind of intense.
It's a pretty big concept.
What exactly do they mean by that?
So they're describing self-implosion as this force that drives everything from the formation of stars to the very process of death.
So death isn't just an ending, but it's this implosion, this compression.
Yeah, that's their take on it. They're saying that,
Wow.
Even when you think about those intense visuals that people report experiencing when they have near-death experiences, the tunnel, the spiral, the lattice patterns.
Right.
And there was actually a psychologist, Heinrich Kluver, who studied these patterns extensively, and he called them form constants. Yeah, and so they're suggesting that these patterns aren't just these random hallucinations, but that they actually represent something very fundamental about the nature of reality itself.
Okay, so they're saying that when we die, our consciousness doesn't just vanish.
Right.
It joins this larger network or something.
That's the implication, and they actually draw parallels to Aboriginal songlines.
Interesting.
Those invisible pathways across the land that hold cultural and spiritual significance.
Yeah.
And they're suggesting that imagine those, but on this cosmic scale.
Wow.
Connecting consciousness across time and space.
That's a really powerful image. But is there any evidence to support this idea?
Well, they mention anecdotal accounts of surgeons who've had out-of-body experiences during surgery.
Okay.
Where they've actually been able to observe their own bodies from outside themselves.
That's interesting. But anecdotal evidence can be a little bit tricky.
Right.
Work with.
And that's where things get a little bit more speculative, because their argument relies heavily on connecting seemingly disparate ideas, like ancient wisdom and modern physics and these very fringe concepts. So it's definitely thought-provoking stuff.
So how does all this tie back to this timeline war that we were talking about earlier?
Well, they seem to believe that understanding this physics of implosion, this force that governs death and stars and potentially even consciousness, is crucial for navigating this cosmic battle that they're describing.
So it's not just the theoretical concept. It's like it has practical implications.
They're even suggesting that understanding this force might be the key to unlocking certain incredible technologies.
Like, what are we talking about here? Like straight out of science fiction type stuff?
It's kind of out there. They hint at things like anti-gravity technology and even the possibility of harnessing the Earth's energy fields for transportation.
Hold on. Anti-gravity. Are we talking about flying cars now?
Not exactly flying cars, but they do mention concepts like the Bell, which was this rumored Nazi technology, and Vimana, which were these ancient flying machines that were described in Indian texts.
Interesting.
And they suggest that these technologies might have been based on manipulating magnetic and inertial mass densities to achieve levitation.
Okay. So now I'm really intrigued.
Yeah.
But this is pretty fringe stuff, right?
It is very fringe.
Is there any real scientific basis for any of this?
It's debatable. You know, they're definitely pushing the boundaries of conventional science, drawing connections that most physicists wouldn't even consider. But that's what makes it so captivating. It forces us to question what we think we know about reality.
Okay. I'm willing to keep an open mind, but let's try to break this down a little bit further. So we've got self-implosion. We've got ancient technology. We've got this potential war for the future. Where does it all lead? What's the key takeaway for us here? Like, why does this matter?
That's a great question, and this actually leads us to one of their most intriguing connections. The link between implosion alchemy and the physics of bliss.
The physics of bliss. Now, that sounds like something I could get behind. I like where this is going.
It's not all doom and gloom, you know. They're proposing that the same principles that govern the implosion of stars might also apply to the human experience of joy and enlightenment.
So achieving like a state of bliss is like a mini implosion within our own beings.
That's one way to look at it. Yeah, it's like this, you know, they describe it as the heart and the brain imploding in a sense, releasing this kind of charge radiance, which they equate to spiritual energy.
Wow. That's powerful.
It's a pretty powerful image.
But if achieving bliss is so powerful, like why isn't everyone just walking around in this state of like ecstatic enlightenment?
Right. Well, that's where they bring up this crucial point, which is that they believe humanity's spiritual development is lagging behind our technological advancements. It's like we've built this rocket ship, but we haven't learned how to actually pilot it yet.
Yeah, like we have all these tools, but we don't have the wisdom to use them responsibly.
It's like we're kids playing with fire.
Right, exactly.
And they're not saying technology is inherently bad, but they're cautioning us about approaching it with more awareness, with more intention. You know, we really need to ask ourselves, is this technology serving us? Or are we serving it?
That's such a good question. And it makes me wonder, what would it look like to actually prioritize our spiritual development? Like, what are some practical steps we can take to kind of bridge this gap?
Well, they talk about the importance of mindfulness practices, you know, cultivating inner peace and stillness, spending more time in nature, disconnecting from technology on a regular basis, and engaging in activities that really nurture our souls, you know?
It sounds like it's about shifting our focus from external to internal. You know, from consumption to creation, from distraction to presence.
Exactly. It's about being present in the moment. And they believe that this inner shift is not only essential for our personal well-being, but also for the well-being of the planet and potentially even for the outcome of this timeline war that they're describing.
Okay, now I'm really curious about this timeline war.
It
sounds like something out of a movie, but they seem to take it pretty seriously. What do they actually believe is happening here?
They suggest that there are unseen forces out there, both benevolent and malevolent. And that these forces are actually influencing the course of human history, you know, and they believe that these forces are battling for control.
So it's not just about technology or political power. It's something much deeper.
It's a struggle for the soul of humanity. That's how they frame it.
That's huge.
And they believe that the outcome of this battle hinges on our choices, our actions.
Our collective consciousness.
Wow. That's a lot of responsibility.
It is. It's a big responsibility.
It sounds like we're not just passive bystanders.
No, we're active participants.
In this cosmic drama.
Exactly. And they suggest that by aligning ourselves with the forces of love, compassion, and wisdom, that we can actually tip the scales, in favor of a brighter future.
So it's not about waiting for someone to save us.
Right.
It's about becoming the change we want to see.
Exactly. It's about empowering ourselves, taking responsibility for our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, and recognizing that we actually have the power to shape our reality.
It's a powerful message.
It is.
But also a daunting one.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel overwhelmed, by the scale of the challenges that we're facing.
I understand.
Both individually and collectively.
Yeah.
But they do offer this glimmer of hope.
They do.
In the midst of all this. And I think it's worth highlighting that.
Remember their discussion about the physics of bliss.
Right.
This idea that achieving a state of joy and enlightenment can actually have a tangible impact on the world around us.
They believe that by cultivating inner peace and harmony, we're not just making ourselves feel better, but we're actually contributing to a positive shift in the collective consciousness.
So our personal transformation can have this ripple effect, influencing the world around us in ways that we might not even realize.
Exactly. And it's a reminder that even amidst all the chaos and uncertainty that we're facing in the world today, that we have the power to choose love, to choose kindness, to choose to focus on the good.
Right.
And those choices, they believe, can make all the difference.
Okay, I'm starting to feel a little bit more optimistic.
Good.
But I am still curious about this idea of the Navy.
Right.
As our secret protectors.
Yeah.
They mentioned it in passing.
They did.
But I'd love to hear more about their theory.
It's definitely one of their most intriguing ideas. They seem to believe that certain factions within the U.S. Navy are aware of these unseen forces, this timeline war, and are actively working to defend humanity from them.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Do they have any evidence to support this claim?
Well, it sounds like something straight out of a conspiracy theory.
It does.
But they point to those Tic Tac UFO videos as potential evidence.
Okay.
They suggest that those objects might be advanced technology developed by a secret branch of the Navy technology that's far beyond anything that we're publicly aware of.
I have to admit, those videos are pretty compelling.
They are fast.
The way those objects move.
Yeah.
It's like nothing I've ever seen.
Right. And they suggest that this technology might be based on principles like longitudinal interferometry.
Okay.
Which they describe as this way of manipulating energy and information along the Earth's energy grid.
So they're using the Earth itself as a weapon.
It's like a shield.
Or a shield. Yeah, a weapon or a shield.
That's a really mind-boggling concept. It is.
But if it's true, it means that there's so much more going on behind the scenes than we realize.
There might be people in positions of power who understand these unseen forces and are actively working to protect us from them.
That's both reassuring and terrifying at the same time.
It is a bit of a dichotomy.
It's like, on the one hand, it's great to know that someone's got our back, but on the other hand, it raises all sorts of questions about secrecy and accountability, who gets to decide what's best for humanity.
It opens up a whole Pandora's box of questions.
It really does.
And it really highlights the importance of critical thinking. Questioning authority and not blindly accepting everything that we're told.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
We need to be discerning.
Right.
We need to evaluate the information that we're given and make up our own minds about what we believe.
Right. So even if we don't fully understand the complexities of this timeline war or the potential role of the Navy, we can still focus on what we can control.
Absolutely.
Our own thoughts, our own actions, our own contributions to the world.
Right.
So it's about finding that balance between staying informed and engaged with the bigger picture while also staying grounded in the present moment.
Absolutely.
And focusing on our own personal growth.
Exactly. And that's a theme that Dan and Jay keep coming back to.
Right.
It's the importance of finding the balance, that integration between the inner and the outer, the personal and the collective. Yeah. The spiritual and the material.
Okay. I'm starting to get a clearer sense of their message here.
Good.
It's about recognizing our interconnectedness.
Yeah.
Our responsibility and our power to choose a more loving,
Right.
compassionate, and conscious way of being.
Exactly.
Wow, this has been a really mind-bending conversation.
It has.
We've explored so many fascinating ideas,
Yeah.
from the fractality of time to the physics of bliss,
Yeah.
from the potential role of the Navy
Yeah.
to the power of our own consciousness.
It's a lot to take in.
I don't know about you,
Yeah.
but I'm feeling a mix of awe,
Yeah.
excitement,
Yeah.
and a healthy dose of curiosity.
That's the beauty of these deep dives.
I
You know, they
swear.
challenge our assumptions, they expand our awareness,
Yeah.
and they leave us with more questions than answers.
For sure, for sure. And hopefully they inspire us
Yeah.
to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking.
Absolutely. Because the journey of discovery is never truly over.
Well said.
There's always more to learn, more to experience, more to become.
You know what? I think we need to take a break.
Yeah.
We've covered so much ground already,
Definitely a lot to digest.
and we still have a lot more to unpack.
Me too.
So we're going to take a quick break,
Okay.
and we'll be back in just a few minutes to continue our deep dive into these amazing ideas.
Sounds good. Stay with us.
All right, so we were talking about this, potential imbalance between, our kind of like spiritual development and our technological advancements.
Right. Yeah. It's like we're so focused on the external world, all the gadgets and gizmos.
Yeah.
And we're kind of neglecting that inner world, that spiritual growth.
And they suggest that imbalance is really at the root of a lot of the problems that we see in the world today.
Yeah.
The conflict, the environmental destruction,
Right.
this sense of meaninglessness.
Yeah. It's like we've created all these amazing tools, but we don't really have the wisdom
Yeah.
to use them responsibly.
We're like kids playing with fire.
Exactly.
And they're not saying that technology is inherently bad,
Right.
but they are, cautioning us to approach it with more awareness, with more intention.
Right.
We really need to ask ourselves, is this technology serving us or are we serving it?
That's a really good question. And it makes me wonder, what would it actually look like to prioritize our spiritual development?
Right. What are some practical steps that we can take to kind of bridge this gap?
Well, they talk about the importance of mindfulness practices.
Okay.
Cultivating inner peace and stillness,
Right.
spending more time in nature, disconnecting from technology on a regular basis, and engaging in activities that really nurture our souls,
So it's about shifting our focus from the external to the internal.
Yeah.
From consumption to creation, from distraction to presence.
Exactly, being present in the moment.
Right.
And they believe that this inner shift is not only essential for our personal well-being,
Okay.
but also for the well-being of the planet, and potentially even for the outcome of this timeline war that they're describing.
Okay, so now I'm really curious about this timeline war.
Yeah.
It sounds like something out of a movie,
Yeah.
but they seem to take it pretty seriously.
Yeah.
So what do they actually believe is happening here?
They're suggesting that there are these unseen forces out there, both benevolent and malevolent, that these forces are actually influencing the course of human history. And they believe that these forces are battling it out for control.
So it's not just about technology or political power or any of that stuff.
It's much deeper than that.
It's something deeper.
They're saying it's a struggle for the soul of humanity.
What?
That's how they're framing it.
That's a huge concept to wrap our minds around.
It is.
And they believe that the outcome of this battle hinges on our choices, our actions,
Yeah.
our collective consciousness.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility.
Wow, that's a lot of responsibility to put on us.
It is.
It sounds like we're not just passive bystanders,
They're active participants.
in this cosmic drama that's playing out.
Exactly. And they're suggesting that by aligning ourselves with the forces of love, compassion, and wisdom,
Right.
that we can tip the scales in favor of, a brighter future for everybody.
So it's not about waiting for someone to save us.
Right.
It's about becoming the change
Exactly.
that we want to see in the world.
It's about empowering ourselves, taking responsibility for our thoughts, our emotions, our actions,
Right.
and recognizing that we have the power to shape our reality.
Yeah, that's a powerful message,
It is very powerful.
but it's also a daunting one.
It can be a little overwhelming.
Yeah, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by,
Right.
just the sheer scale of the challenges
I understand that.
that we're facing individually and collectively.
I get it.
But they do offer this glimmer of hope in the midst of all this.
They do.
And I think it's worth highlighting.
Absolutely.
Remember their discussion about the physics of bliss.
Right.
This idea that achieving a state of joy and enlightenment
Right.
can actually have a tangible impact on the world around us.
They believe that by cultivating inner peace and harmony.
Yeah.
That we're not just making ourselves feel better, but we're actually contributing to this positive shift in the collective consciousness.
Right. So our personal transformation,
yes,
has this ripple effect, influencing the world around us in ways that we might not even be able to comprehend.
Exactly. And it's a good reminder that even amidst the chaos and uncertainty that we're seeing in the world today, that we still have the power to choose love, to choose kindness, to choose to focus on the good. And those choices can make all the difference.
Okay. I'm starting to feel a little bit more optimistic after hearing that, but I am still curious about this idea of the Navy, as our secret protectors.
Yeah.
They mentioned it in passing, but I'd love to hear more about what their theory actually is.
It's definitely one of their more intriguing ideas.
Yeah.
They seem to believe that certain factions within the U.S. Navy are aware of these unseen forces, this timeline war, and that they're actively working to defend humanity from them.
Okay, hold on. Do they actually have any evidence to support this claim?
Well, it does sound a little bit like a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, it does.
But they point to things like those Tic Tac UFO videos as potential evidence. They suggest that those objects might be advanced technology that was developed by like a secret branch of the Navy, technology that's far beyond anything that we're publicly aware of.
I have to admit, those videos are pretty compelling, the way those objects move.
Yeah.
It's like nothing I've ever seen before.
Right, and they're suggesting that this technology could be based on principles like longitudinal interferometry, which they describe as this way of manipulating energy and information along the Earth's energy grid.
So they're using the Earth itself as a weapon.
It's like a shield or a weapon.
Or shield.
It's kind of a mind-boggling concept.
That's a really mind-boggling concept.
But if it's true, it means that there's so much more going on behind the scenes than we realize.
Oh, absolutely.
There might be people in positions of power who understand these unseen forces and are actively working to protect us from them.
That's both reassuring and terrifying at the same time.
It's a strange dichotomy.
Yeah. On the one hand, it's great to know that someone's got our back.
Right.
But on the other hand, it raises so many questions about secrecy and accountability. Who gets to decide what's best for humanity?
It opens up a whole Pandora's box of questions.
Yeah, it really does.
And I think it really highlights the importance of critical thinking, Ro.
Yes.
Questioning authority.
For sure.
And not blindly accepting everything we're told.
Right.
We need to be discerning.
Absolutely.
We need to evaluate the information that we're given and make up our own minds about what we believe.
So even if we don't fully understand, all the complexities of this timeline war or the potential role of the Navy, we can still focus on what we can control. Our thoughts, our actions, our contributions to the world.
Exactly.
So it's about finding that balance
Yeah.
between staying informed and engaged with the bigger picture,
Right.
but also staying grounded in the present moment.
Absolutely.
And focusing on, our own personal growth.
Yeah, and that's a theme that Dan and Jay keep coming back to over and over again. It's this importance of finding that balance, that integration between the inner and the outer, the personal and the collective, the spiritual and the material.
Okay. I'm starting to get a clearer sense of their message.
Good.
It's about recognizing our interconnectedness, our responsibility, and our power to choose a more loving, compassionate, conscious way of being.
It is. It's a very powerful message.
It is. It's both challenging and inspiring.
It's a call to action.
Right.
It's an invitation to step into our full potential as human beings.
Well, this has been a really mind-bending conversation.
It has.
We've explored so many fascinating ideas, from the factality of time to the physics of bliss, from the potential role of the Navy to the power of our own consciousness.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a mix of awe, excitement, and a healthy dose of curiosity.
That's the beauty of these deep dives.
Right.
They challenge our assumptions, expand our awareness, and leave us with more questions than answers.
And hopefully inspire us to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking.
Exactly, because the journey of discovery never really ends. There's always more to learn, more to experience, more to become.
All right, so last time we were talking about this whole idea of the Navy, potentially being involved in this secret battle against these unseen forces.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like something straight out of a sci-fi thriller.
It does, doesn't it? But, Dan and Jay, they presented some really intriguing points about the Navy's potential role in all this.
Right, yeah.
And, they suggested that certain factions within the Navy might have a much deeper understanding of these unseen forces than, maybe some of the other branches of the military.
But they mentioned Admiral Borda and his supposed suicide, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they speculate that it could have been more than just a personal tragedy?
Yeah, they suggested that, perhaps he was getting a little too close to certain truths and that maybe his removal, from a position of power was kind of orchestrated by these negative forces.
That's a chilling thought.
Yeah.
I mean, are they suggesting that there's some kind of infiltration happening even at the highest levels of government?
They didn't get into specifics about, who or what might be behind it.
Right.
But their conversation definitely hinted at this possibility of a hidden struggle for control.
Mm-hmm.
A battle that's playing out not just in the physical realm, but also in the realm of information and perception.
So it's not just about, spaceships and lasers.
No.
It's about the way we see the world.
Right.
The narratives we believe, the truth that we accept.
Exactly. And they seem to believe that the Navy, perhaps because of its long history of dealing with the mysteries of the ocean, has maintained a stronger connection to these hidden truths.
So if the Navy is involved in this secret battle, what's their strategy? How do they even fight against these unseen forces?
Well, they pointed to this concept of longitudinal interferometry again, suggesting that they might be using this technology to manipulate the Earth's energy grid, essentially weaponizing the planet itself.
That's a pretty wild idea.
Yeah.
But, if we can harness the Earth's energy for things like electricity and communication,
right,
why not for defense as well?
I mean, it's not that far-fetched when you think about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So are they saying that those Tic-Tac UFOs?
Well, that's what they're suggesting.
Right.
They're saying that those might actually be evidence of this technology in action.
So they weren't alien spacecraft after all. They were just secret Navy technology.
Right, based on these principles that we're just starting to understand.
I mean, it's a pretty captivating theory.
It is.
It raises so many questions, about the true extent of human technological capabilities. And, the possibility that we're engaged in this hidden war that most of us are completely unaware of.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's mind-blowing. But if this is true, what does it mean for us? Like, what role can we play in all of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's something that Dan and Jay really addressed towards the end of their conversation.
Okay.
And, they suggested that the outcome of this timeline war hinges not so much on military might or advanced technology, but on the evolution of human consciousness.
So it's not about waiting for someone to save us. It's about, stepping up and becoming the change we want to see in the world.
They believe that the more we connect to our inner wisdom, the more we cultivate love and compassion.
Right.
The more we expand our awareness, the stronger we become as a species. And the better equipped we are to navigate these challenges.
So it really comes back to that idea of the physics of bliss, the idea that our inner state can actually influence the world around us.
Exactly. They believe that by cultivating that inner peace and harmony, we're not just making ourselves feel better, but we're actually contributing to this positive shift in the collective consciousness.
So it's not just about, feeling good. It's about actually actively participating in the creation of a better world.
Exactly. And they even suggested that this shift in consciousness might be the key to unlocking even greater potential within ourselves, abilities that we haven't even begun to tap into.
It's like we're on the verge of a major evolutionary leap.
It is.
A transformation not just of our technology, but of our very being.
Yeah, that's the sense I got from their conversation.
It's exciting and a little bit daunting at the same time.
It is.
I mean, it makes you wonder what the future holds. You know, what possibilities might unfold if we can collectively raise our consciousness and embrace, a more harmonious way of being.
It's a question worth pondering.
It is.
And perhaps the answer lies not in looking outward for solutions, but in turning inward. Exploring the depths of our own being and unlocking that incredible potential that lies within each of us.
Well, this deep dive has certainly given me a lot to think about. We've explored some truly mind-bending concepts today.
It has been a journey.
From, a potential timeline war to secret technologies to unseen forces to the power of human consciousness.
And the interconnectedness of it all.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a mix of awe, excitement, and a healthy dose of curiosity.
I think that's the beauty of these deep dives, you know?
Right.
They challenge our assumptions, they expand our awareness, and
Yeah.
they leave us with more questions than answers.
They really do. And hopefully they inspire us to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep seeking those answers.
Absolutely, because the journey of discovery never truly ends. There's always more to learn, more to experience, more to become.
That's right. And on that note, I think it's time for us to wrap up this deep dive.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much for joining us on this incredible journey.
It's been a pleasure.
And until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.
All right, see you next time.